This house has a secret, a locked room that no one dares to enter. The last time someone did, they disappeared without a trace. I'm here to find out what happened to them. This is the only house left in this town. Decades ago, it was abandoned. They say the only thing that remains is a mystery. I found the front door open and stepped inside. The floorboards creaked under my weight. Cobwebs brushed against my face as I walked deeper into the house. I could have sworn I heard a whisper, but when I turned around, there was nothing there. Then I saw it, a hidden door behind a tapestry. I pulled it open and stepped inside. This was no ordinary room. The walls were covered in strange symbols and what looked like dried blood. And then I saw the mirror. It wasn't my reflection that stared back at me, but a dark, twisted figure standing silently behind me. He leaned closer and whispered, "You shouldn't have come." Before I could react, the door slammed shut. The room was plunged into darkness. I could feel something cold and slimy all over my skin. And then I heard his voice again. This time it was louder, more desperate. "Help me. There are some places in this world where time seems to have stopped, and then there are some rooms which are best left undiscovered. But curiosity, as we know, cannot always be contained." In a quiet, forgotten town at the end of a narrow, winding lane stood an old mansion, large and looming, yet unassuming. For decades it had been abandoned, left to rot and decay. The paint was peeling from its walls and the once manicured gardens had become wild and overgrown. The house was a shell of its former self, a sad reminder of a bygone era. But the townsfolk whispered of a hidden room locked away inside, a place where secrets were kept and horrors resided. They said that the key to this room was lost long ago and that anyone who stumbled upon it would be met with unimaginable terror. Naturally, no one dared to venture too close, let alone enter. Yet, every full moon, strange lights could be seen flickering within the upper windows, accompanied by whispers that seemed to carry on the wind. Some claimed these were the ghosts of those trapped within the house, forever doomed to wander its shadowy halls. Fast forward to the present day. Mira, a young woman with an adventurous spirit and a thirst for the unknown, had just moved to the town. She'd heard the stories about the mansion at the end of the lane, but dismissed them as mere superstitious tales. She spent her days exploring the town, discovering its hidden nooks and crannies and listening to its inhabitants' stories. One day, she learned about the abandoned mansion and became intrigued. Despite the warnings from the locals, she couldn't resist the urge to uncover the truth behind the mansion's eerie reputation. One evening, as a storm brewed overhead, casting long, eerie shadows across the town, Mira decided to visit the mansion. With a dim lantern in hand, she walked down the overgrown path leading to the front door. The wind howled through the broken window panes, and the sound of rain mixed with the creaking of the old house made it seem as though the mansion itself was alive and breathing. As she stepped inside, the musty smell of decay filled her nostrils. Cobwebs brushed against her face and the floorboards creaked ominously under her weight. The mansion seemed to be watching her, its silence broken only by the sound of her own footsteps echoing through the darkness. Determined to find the hidden room, Mira began to explore. She wandered through decaying corridors, each turn revealing more decay and destruction. As she descended into the basement, the air grew colder, sending shivers down her spine. Suddenly, she heard it, a faint whisper, barely audible above the sound of the storm. It was a murmur, a voice that seemed to drift in and out of existence, like the whisper of the wind through dead leaves. Intrigued and slightly unnerved, she followed the sound, her lantern swaying with her movements. The voice seemed to beckon her forward, and she couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding mixed with excitement. Just when she thought the basement couldn't get any darker or colder, the voice abruptly stopped. With trembling hands, she pushed aside a heavy tapestry hanging in what appeared to be a pantry. Behind it, she discovered a door concealed in the shadows. The door was old, and the brass lock seemed to be frozen in time. As Mira reached out to touch it, she felt a sudden chill, like an icy finger tracing down her arm. Her heart pounded in her chest and she took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing thoughts. With shaking hands, she began to fiddle with the lock, her fingers clumsy in the darkness. Finally, with a click that echoed in the silent basement, the lock gave way. Behind the door was a small, dimly lit room. The single flickering candle on the table cast long, dancing shadows on the walls, making them appear to writhe and twist. The room was circular, and the walls were covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift and change in the flickering light. In the center of the room stood a large mirror, its surface cracked and clouded, like a stagnant pool reflecting a distorted and unsettling image of the world. As Mira approached the mirror, she saw not her own reflection, but the distorted semblance of a person standing directly behind her. The sight sent a jolt of fear through her, and she instinctively took a step back. In the depths of the mirror, the figure seemed to twist and distort, taking on a life of its own. Its features were obscured by the cracks and grime, but Mira could sense a presence there, something malevolent and unseen, watching her with an unnerving intensity. A sudden gust of wind slammed the door shut, plunging the room into darkness. The candle on the table sputtered and died, leaving Mira enveloped in an all-consuming blackness. She could hear the wind howling outside, and for a moment she felt utterly alone in the suffocating darkness. Then she heard it again, the voice from before, closer now, rasping and dry, like the whisper of a skeletal hand dragging itself across stone. "You shouldn't have come," it hissed, the words slithering through the darkness, sending shivers down her spine. Panic surged through Mira. She stumbled backward, knocking over the chair with a loud crash. The sound echoed in the confined space, bouncing off the cold, unyielding walls. She cried out, her voice trembling with fear as she tried to make sense of the darkness that pressed in on her. But the darkness only deepened, swallowing her whole. She could feel something cold and slimy brush against her skin, and she flinched, her heart pounding against her ribs like a frantic bird trying to escape its cage. It was as if something unseen was there, observing her, waiting for her to make a move. The air grew thick and heavy, and she could feel unseen eyes boring into her, weighing her, measuring her fear. Then she felt it again, the sensation of icy fingers curling around her arm, their touch like the grip of death itself. She screamed, the sound raw and desperate as she struggled against the invisible force that seemed determined to drag her down. But it was no use. She felt herself being pulled, dragged slowly and inexorably towards the mirror. Through blurred vision, she saw the distorted figure from before, its form solidifying in the darkness. It seemed to beckon to her, promising solace or perhaps something worse. She wanted to resist, to claw at the unseen hands that held her, but she couldn't help but feel a morbid curiosity, a need to understand what was happening to her. And as she felt herself being pulled further into the mirror, she knew she was stepping into a world she might never escape. The mansion at the end of the lane remained silent, its secrets safe within its crumbling walls. The townsfolk venturing into the house after the storm had passed found it eerily quiet. Mira was nowhere to be seen. They searched the rooms, their faces pale in the dim light filtering through the grimy windows, but they found no trace of the young woman. The only clue to whatever had happened to her was the open door to the hidden room and the mirror in the center, now cracked in multiple places, reflecting not her face, but the empty room. Yet on stormy nights, when the wind howled and the rain lashed against the mansion, some claimed to see a faint figure trapped behind the glass, silently begging for help. But no one dared to approach the mirror, for who knows what horrors lie behind the cracks.